My mother left me to raise her 4 other kids when I was 16 because she needed to find herself, but I discovered she was living in a beach house with her boyfriend while I dropped out of school, so I will ruin her dream life. I'm 23 now. When I was 16, Mom sat me down for a talk. Lily, you're so mature for your age. I need some time to work on myself, to heal. You understand, right? I didn't understand, but I nodded. The twins, Ella and Eva, were 8. Jason was 6. Baby Katie was 3. Mom said she'd be gone for a few weeks, maybe a month. Just while I get therapy and sort myself out. You can handle things. You're basically their second mother anyway. She left $500 and disappeared. A month turned into 3, then 6, then years. She'd send money sometimes. 200 here, 300 there, never enough, never on time. I dropped out of junior year to work full-time at a warehouse. Told the school I was being homeschooled. Told the kids Mom was working far away to make money for us. Told myself she'd come back. The twins needed school supplies, uniforms, lunch money. Jason needed therapy for his anxiety that started when Mom left. Katie needed daycare while I worked. I made it work. 18-hour days. Warehouse from midnight to 8. Home to get kids ready. Drop them off. Grocery store from 9 to 5. Pick them up. Dinner, homework, baths, bed, repeat. Mom would call once a month. How's everyone? You're doing amazing, Lily. I'm getting better. Just need more time. She'd cry about her trauma, her broken childhood, her need to heal. And then I'd listen while Katie cried in the background because she wet the bed again. When I turned 18, I applied for legal guardianship. Mom signed the papers without even reading them. Whatever helps you with school stuff, she said over the phone. You know I trust you completely. That same week, Ella broke her arm at school. The hospital bill was $3,000. I called Mom sobbing. I don't have it. I can't do this anymore. Lily, stop being selfish. I gave you life. The least you can do is help with your siblings while I'm getting healthy. Some daughters would be grateful for the responsibility. It's making you so strong. I worked extra shifts, sold everything valuable we had, paid the bill, kept going. 2 years of this. The twins were in middle school. Jason was 9, Katie was 6 and still asked when Mommy was coming home. I was 19 and looked 30. Then Jason's teacher called. We're doing a family tree project. Jason says his mom lives in California. He showed me a photo from her Instagram. Mom had Instagram. I found her profile that night. Public. 3,000 posts. My mother, tanned and glowing, at beach yoga. Wine tasting in Napa. Hiking in Big Sur. Sailing with someone named Derek. Posted yesterday. Living my best life at 38. Finally free to be myself. The tagged location showed Monterey Bay. She was 3 hours away this whole time. I scrolled back. The post started a week after she left us. New chapter! Sometimes you have to choose yourself. Sunset meditation with my love at Derek Realtor. Building our dream beach house. Everything happens for a reason. The beach house. They bought a beach house. While I was stealing bread from work to feed her kids, she was buying property. I found Derek's profile. Real estate agent, successful. Posted photos of their house, their cars, their trips, their engagement announcement from last month. She said yes. Can't wait to marry this amazing woman who chose love over everything else. Chose love over everything else. Over her 5 kids. I kept digging. Found the house listing. $800,000. Closed 2 years ago. When Katie was 4. When I was working 3 jobs. When Jason was having panic attacks. When the twins were asking why other kids had moms at their school plays. She'd had money this whole time. I called in sick the next day. Drove to Monterey with printed screenshots. Knocked on her door. She answered in designer workout clothes. Her face went from confused to panicked. Lily? What are you doing here? Checking on your healing progress. Looks extensive. The therapy must be expensive. Derek appeared behind her. Tall, handsome, confused. Babe, who's this? Mom's eyes begged me to play along. I'm Lily. Her daughter, the one raising her 4 other kids while she heals from trauma. Derek's face changed. You have kids? Mom laughed nervously. Derek's face went completely white, and he turned to Mom with this look that was confusion mixed with something harder, something that made her start shaking her head really fast. She grabbed for his arm, and her voice went high and weird as she tried to laugh. No, Derek, this is just a misunderstanding. She's confused, I can explain. But Derek was staring at me now, and I could see him trying to work out if I was lying or crazy or what. I pulled out my phone with the screenshots I'd printed and folded up in my pocket, plus the bank statements I'd found online showing the beach house purchase 2 years ago. When Katie was 8 and I was working double shifts just to afford her school supplies. I held them out to Derek and his hands were shaking when he took them. I watched his face as he read, and it was like watching someone's whole world get rearranged right in front of me. His eyes went from the papers to Mom to me and back to the papers. Mom lunged forward and tried to grab them from his hands, but I pulled out the copies I'd made. I have more, I said, and my voice sounded cold and flat, not like me at all. $500 7 years ago when she left. Then maybe 6 payments of $200 to $300 over all those years, while she was buying an $800,000 house. Derek looked up from the papers and asked in this quiet, destroyed voice how many kids, and Mom just stood there with her mouth opening and closing. 5 total, I said. I'm the oldest at 23. Then 15-year-old twins Ella and Eva, 13-year-old Jason, and 10-year-old Katie, who still cries for her mommy at night. Mom finally found her voice and launched into this story about her difficult childhood, about needing to heal herself before she could be a good mother, about how she was doing this for us, really. Derek stared at her like he'd never seen her before, and I could practically see him going through 7 years of Instagram posts in his head, all those captions about freedom and finding herself and living her best life. I didn't let her finish her speech. I dropped out of junior year, I told Derek, looking right at him. I work midnight to 8 at a warehouse. Then I worked 9 to 5 at a grocery store until last week. Jason's therapy bills for his anxiety that started when she left. Ella's broken arm that cost $3,000. Katie's nightmares. Mom kept trying to interrupt, but Derek held up his hand and told her to be quiet, and his voice had this sharp edge I bet he'd never used with her before. Is this true? Derek asked me directly. Did she really leave 5 kids? Including a 3-year-old? I pulled up photos on my phone. Katie's first day of kindergarten with me doing her hair all wrong because I didn't know how. Jason having a panic attack at his 5th grade graduation while I tried to calm him down in the parking lot. The twins learning to cook mac and cheese because I was at work and couldn't make dinner. Derek took my phone and scrolled through them, and his face just kept getting worse. Mom reached for his arm again, and he actually stepped away from her, putting physical space between them that made her face crumple up. Have you been lying to me about everything? He asked her. For 3 years? She started crying then, real tears running down her face. I was going to tell you. I just needed the right time. You have to understand how hard this is for me. I felt this mean satisfaction watching her perfect life crack apart in front of me, but then Derek turned to me and asked what I wanted from this confrontation. The question caught me totally off guard because I'd driven here on pure rage without thinking past just exposing her lies to someone. Before I could figure out what to say, Mom pivoted hard into attack mode. You're being selfish and dramatic, she said to me, her voice going sharp. You always make everything about you instead of trying to understand what I need. I'm your mother, and you owe me respect. Derek's face went even harder, and he said that's enough, using this professional real estate agent voice that was barely covering how mad he was. I hear myself saying I want her to face what she did, to stop pretending she's some kind of brave woman finding herself when she really just abandoned 5 kids to chase a beach house fantasy. Mom's face changes into something ugly and twisted, all the fake sweetness gone in a second. She calls me an ungrateful bitch who never appreciated the sacrifice of giving me life, who never understood how hard it was for her. Derek makes this noise like he's been punched and tells Mom she needs to leave the room so he can think. Mom refuses and grabs his arm, saying we need to talk about this together, that I'm lying about half of it. Derek pulls away from her touch and says if she won't leave, then he's going instead. He walks right out his own front door without looking back, and I hear his car start in the driveway. The sound of him leaving seems to echo in the huge empty house. I'm standing there in this beautiful beach house with my mother who's looking at me with pure hatred now that her mask is completely off. Mom hisses that I've ruined everything. That I'm just like my father who was vindictive and small-minded and couldn't understand complex adult relationships. I actually laugh in her face because she's still trying to manipulate me even now. Still trying to make herself the victim of my cruelty, instead of the woman who left her kids. She takes a step toward me and I stand my ground even though my legs are shaking. I tell her I'm not leaving until we figure out how she's going to actually support her kids. The ones she legally abandoned but never bothered to terminate her parental rights to. Mom's face goes calculating and she asks what I mean by that, and I can see her brain working even though she never finished law school. The truth is, I have no idea what I mean because I'm 23 with no high school diploma and 0 legal knowledge, but I'm not letting her see my uncertainty. I tell her we're going to work something out, or I'm going to make sure everyone in her new life knows exactly who she really is. Mom tries to call my bluff and says, go ahead, tell everyone. She'll just say I'm a disturbed young woman with boundary issues who can't let go. But her voice wavers because she knows Derek already believes me, and if he believes me, then other people will too. I can see her doing the math in her head about how many of her friends saw me show up, how many neighbors might have heard us yelling. I leave before she can see me shaking, before the adrenaline crash hits and I fall apart in front of her. My hands are trembling, so bad I can barely get my car keys out of my pocket. I sit in my beat-up car in their perfect neighborhood with its perfect houses and perfect lawns and try to figure out what the hell I just did and what happens next. Other cars pass by with people going about their normal days while my whole world feels like it's spinning. Derek calls my phone an hour later when I'm halfway home on the highway, and he asks if we can meet somewhere neutral to talk. His voice sounds exhausted and sad, and I feel this weird guilt for destroying his happiness, even though he needed to know the truth. I tell him yes, and we agree on a coffee shop that's halfway between Monterey and my town. I spend the rest of the drive trying to figure out what he wants, if he's going to yell at me or defend Mom or what. We meet at the coffee shop the next morning, and Derek looks like he hasn't slept at all. His eyes are red and his hair is messy. He tells me he ended the engagement last night after I left, that he can't marry someone capable of abandoning children and lying about it for years. I don't know what to say to that, so I just nod and stir my coffee that I can't afford, but bought anyway because it felt weird to meet without ordering something. Derek asks careful questions about the kids and our situation, and I find myself telling him everything because he actually listens without interrupting or making excuses for her. He's horrified when I tell him about the hospital bills for Ella's broken arm and how I sold everything valuable we owned to pay it. He keeps shaking his head when I explain about dropping out of school and working the midnight to 8 warehouse shift, and then the 9 to 5 grocery store shift. I tell him about Jason's therapy bills for anxiety, and Katie asking when mommy is coming home and the twins learning to cook because I was always at work. Derek's face gets worse and worse as I talk, and he keeps saying he had no idea, that mom told him she had no family and wanted a quiet, child-free life. I laugh, and it comes out bitter and sharp in the quiet coffee shop. She had 5 kids before she decided she wanted a child-free life. 5 actual human beings she created, and then just walked away from like we were a bad investment. Derek doesn't smile or try to make me feel better about the irony. He just stares at his coffee cup, and I can see him mentally reviewing every conversation they had, every story mom told him about her past. He looks up at me and his eyes are red around the edges. He tells me he's a real estate agent, not a lawyer, but he knows people who might be able to help me figure out legal options for child support and back payment. I study his face trying to figure out if this is guilt talking or if he actually cares, because I've learned not to trust adults who make promises they might not keep. He seems genuinely upset, though, like what mom did violates something basic in how he thinks the world should work. He pulls out his phone and starts scrolling through contacts while I sit there not knowing what to say. Part of me wants to tell him to forget it, that I don't need his help or his pity, but the smarter part knows I need all the help I can get. He writes down a name and number on a napkin and slides it across the table. The napkin has a coffee ring on it and his handwriting is messy, but I fold it carefully and put it in my pocket. We sit there for another few minutes in awkward silence before he pays for both our coffees, and we walk out to the parking lot. The sun is too bright after the dim coffee shop and I have to squint. Derek asks if I'm okay to drive and I nod even though I'm shaking. He touches my shoulder briefly before getting in his car and I watch him drive away before I get in mine. The drive home takes forever even though it's only 2 hours. My brain won't shut up, replaying the conversation with Derek and the confrontation with mom and trying to figure out what happens next. I keep checking my phone at red lights to see if mom has called or texted, but there's nothing. The highway stretches out gray and boring and I pass the same fast food places and gas stations I always pass. My car makes a weird rattling sound around mile marker 47, but I ignore it because I can't afford to fix it right now. I pull into our driveway a little after midnight and the living room lights are still on. The twins are waiting up even though they have school tomorrow. They're sitting on the couch together and both their faces turn to me when I walk in. Ella stands up first and demands to know where I've been and why I look so wrecked. I try to brush it off and say I just had to take care of something, but Ella calls me on my bullshit immediately. She says they're not babies anymore and they deserve to know what's happening. Eva is watching me with worried eyes and I can see she's been crying. I sit down in the chair across from them and take a deep breath. I tell them a simplified version, that I found mom and confronted her about the money and the lying. Eva starts crying immediately, these quiet tears that slide down her face while she stares at me. Ella gets this hard look on her face that makes her seem older than 15. She asks if mom is coming back now and her voice is flat and cold. I say no, probably not. And Ella says good because she doesn't want to see her anyway after what she did to us. Eva makes a small sound like she's been hit, and I watch them process abandonment in completely different ways right there on our old couch. Ella is angry and done with mom, ready to write her off completely. Eva is still holding on to some fantasy of mom coming back and explaining everything and making it all make sense somehow. I don't know which reaction is healthier, or if there even is a healthy way to process your mother choosing a beach house over you. Eva asks if mom said anything about them, and I lie and say yes, that mom asked how everyone was doing. It's a small lie, but Eva needs it, so I give it to her. Jason appears in the hallway in his pajamas, and I can tell from his face that he's been listening. He comes out asking questions in his anxious way, needing every detail explained and reassured multiple times. Did mom look okay? Is she sick? Is that why she left? Does she have enough money now? Is she coming back? What did she say exactly? I answer each question as simply as I can while watching his hands twist together. Katie is somehow still asleep in the room she shares with Eva, and I'm grateful because I have no idea how to explain any of this to a 10-year-old. How do you tell a kid that their mom chose wine tasting and beach yoga over them? Jason asks if this means we'll have more money now, and I say maybe. I'm working on it. Ella asks what that means, and I tell them about Derek and the lawyer contact, and possibly getting child support. Ella's face changes from angry to hopeful, and it breaks something in me to see how much that possibility means to her. The next few days are a blur of work shifts and trying to act normal while my brain spins with rage and confusion. I go through the motions at the warehouse, scanning boxes and loading pallets and trying not to think about mom's Instagram posts. My hands do the work automatically while my mind replays every conversation we've had over the last 7 years. Every time she called crying about her trauma while I was literally stealing food to feed her kids. Every time she said she needed more time while she was buying furniture for her beach house. The rage sits in my chest like something solid and heavy. Theo, my warehouse supervisor, notices I'm off during my Thursday shift. He pulls me aside near the loading dock and asks if everything is okay at home. Theo has been decent to me for 6 years. Never questioned why I started working here at 16. Always flexible with my schedule when the kids are sick. I break down and tell him the whole story right there between pallets of electronics. Everything spills out. The confrontation at the beach house, Mom's lies, Derek ending the engagement, the twins' reactions. Theo's face goes from concerned to furious as I talk. He says that's messed up. That's really messed up, and I can see he means it. He tells me his sister Alicia is a paralegal at a family law firm and offers to get me a consultation. I start crying again because people keep helping me and I'm not used to it. Theo pats my shoulder awkwardly and tells me to take my break early. Alicia calls me that evening while I'm making dinner. Her voice is professional but warm, and she says Theo told her about my situation. She asks a few basic questions about the kids and the guardianship papers and Mom's income. I answer while stirring pasta and watching Eva do homework at the kitchen table. Alicia sets up a meeting with her boss Ivy Horn for the end of the week. I'm terrified of what a lawyer will cost because I know my credit cards are maxed out and I have maybe $200 in savings. Alicia must hear something in my voice because she says they do some pro bono work, and Ivy will at least give me a free initial consultation. I thank her about 5 times before hanging up. Eva asks who that was, and I tell her it was someone who might be able to help us. She smiles at me and goes back to her math homework. My phone buzzes with a text from Derek. He sends me the name of a family law attorney he knows professionally, someone named Kara Chen with an office in the city. I stare at the text trying to figure out his angle. Why is he helping me? Is it guilt? Or does he actually care what happens to us? I text back that I have a meeting set up with Ivy Horn, and he responds immediately saying that's good, she has a solid reputation. I put my phone down and finish making dinner, this weird feeling of hope mixing with the rage in my chest. 3 days pass before my phone lights up with Mom's number. I'm washing dishes after dinner and I almost ignore it, but curiosity wins. I dry my hands and answer. Her voice comes through sweet and reasonable, like she's talking to a child who's having a tantrum. She asks if we can talk like adults about finding a solution that works for everyone. I can hear the careful control in her tone. The therapy speak she probably practiced with Derek before everything fell apart. She says she understands I'm upset, but we need to have a real conversation about what's best for the kids. I grip the phone tighter and tell her we can talk through lawyers. The sweet act drops instantly. Her voice goes sharp and she says I'm being ridiculous and vindictive, that she's been doing her best with limited resources and I'm punishing her for having normal human needs for space and growth. I laugh because the audacity is almost funny. I ask her point blank about the $800,000 house. She actually tries to say that was Derek's money, not hers. I tell her I have the property records showing both their names on the deed. She goes quiet for a few seconds. Then she switches tactics completely and starts crying about how hard her childhood was, how she never learned proper parenting, how she was drowning and had to save herself first. Something in me softens despite everything, because she's still my mother, and part of me still wants her to love me. Her voice breaks as she talks about her own mom leaving when she was young, about feeling abandoned her whole life. I feel myself wavering. Then she says, if I really cared about my siblings, I would understand that she needed to heal before she could be present for them. The manipulation snaps me back to reality like cold water. I tell her to get a lawyer and hang up before I say something worse. My hands shake as I set the phone down. Eva looks up from her homework at the kitchen table and asks if I'm okay. I nod and go back to washing dishes, scrubbing harder than necessary. The meeting with Ivy is on Friday afternoon, and I come straight from my grocery store shift. Her office is in a nice building downtown with real art on the walls and carpet that looks new. I'm wearing my grocery store uniform with the name tag still pinned to my shirt because I didn't have time to change. The receptionist tells me to have a seat and I sink into a leather chair that probably costs more than my car. I feel out of place and small. Ivy comes out to get me herself instead of sending the receptionist. She's maybe 40 with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Her office has a big wooden desk and shelves full of law books. She gestures for me to sit in one of the chairs across from her desk and pulls out a yellow legal pad. She asks me to start from the beginning and tell her everything. I do. All of it spills out while she takes notes, nodding occasionally but never interrupting. When I finish, she sets down her pen and explains that because I have legal guardianship and Mom voluntarily signed over custody, I have a strong case for child support going forward. But back support for the past 5 years is complicated because Mom was sending some money, even if it was inadequate. She says we can try for back support, but it might not be worth the fight compared to securing ongoing payments. The numbers she throws out for potential monthly child support make me dizzy. Based on Mom's income from Derek's real estate business where she worked as his assistant, 4 kids times the state formula could mean $3,000 a month or more. $3,000. I start crying right there in her office because $3,000 a month would mean I could cut back to one job, maybe finish my GED, actually be present for my siblings instead of just surviving. Ivy hands me a box of tissues from her desk and waits while I pull myself together. She says we'll do everything we can to make this happen. She needs financial documentation showing Mom's income and assets, which I don't have. But she says we can subpoena records through the court process. That's what discovery is for. She pulls out a retainer agreement and explains her fees are reduced because Alicia told her about my situation. The number is still more than I have, but it's manageable if I put it on my credit card. I sign the papers with a hand that's steadier than I feel. Ivy walks me out and tells me she'll be in touch within a few days once she starts filing paperwork. I leave feeling hopeful for the first time in years. My phone rings that evening while I'm making dinner and the kids are doing homework at the kitchen table. Derek's name shows up on the screen and I almost don't answer because talking to him feels weird after everything. I step into the hallway and accept the call. He asks if it would help to have financial records from the business. Actual documentation of what Mom was making while she told me she had nothing. I realize he's offering to provide evidence against her and I ask why he would do that. He says it's the right thing to do and he feels guilty for not questioning her story sooner, for not seeing the obvious holes in what she told him. His voice sounds tired and sad but determined. I tell him yes, that would help a lot, and we agree to meet the next day. The coffee shop is the same one where we met before, and Derek is already there when I arrive after my warehouse shift. He's wearing jeans and a button-up shirt instead of his usual real estate agent clothes, and he looks older somehow, like the past few days aged him. He slides a folder across the table before I even sit down. Inside are printed financial statements from his business showing Mom's salary and bonuses over 3 years. I scan the numbers and my hands start shaking. $70,000 a year. She was making $70,000 a year as his assistant, while telling me she could barely afford to send $200 every few months. The math does itself in my head automatically. 70,000 divided by 12 months is almost 6,000 a month. She could have sent us half her income and still had plenty to live on, but instead she sent maybe 2,000 total per year. The rage that hits me looking at those numbers is almost physical, like something hot and sharp in my chest that makes it hard to breathe. Derek sees it on my face because he reaches across the table like he wants to touch my hand, but stops himself. He tells me he's sorry, that he had no idea, that if he'd known about us, he never would have enabled her lies. He says he reviewed every payment he ever made to her, and she was getting regular paychecks, bonuses for big sales, even a Christmas bonus last year of $5,000. $5,000 for Christmas while I was picking up extra shifts to buy presents for the kids. I want to scream or throw something or drive back to Monterey and show her these papers while asking her to explain how she needed to heal so badly she couldn't spare any of this money for her own children. Derek keeps apologizing, and I realize he's genuinely upset, that finding out about Mom's lies hurt him too, even though he's not the one who suffered from them. I want to hate Derek for being part of this, for being the reason Mom had such an easy, comfortable life while we struggled. But he's genuinely trying to help now, and I'm too exhausted to maintain anger at everyone. He didn't know we existed, and as soon as he found out, he left her, and now he's giving me ammunition to use against her in court. I take the financial records and thank him, my voice coming out rough because I'm trying not to cry in this coffee shop. Derek asks if there's anything else he can do, and I tell him this is already more than enough. We sit there for a few more minutes in awkward silence before I leave with the folder held tight against my chest, like it might disappear. I take the financial records to Alicia the next day during my lunch break from the grocery store. The paralegal office where she works is small and cramped with file boxes stacked everywhere, and a coffee maker that looks like it's from the 90s. Alicia is maybe 30 with her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she gestures for me to sit in the chair across from her desk. I hand her the folder and watch her eyes widen as she reviews the numbers. She flips through the pages slowly, her expression getting more and more shocked. She tells me this is exactly what they need, that having 3 years of documented income makes the child support calculation straightforward. She asks how I got these records, and I explain about Derek, about how he left Mom when he found out about us. Alicia nods and says that's good, that his cooperation will make everything easier. She makes copies of everything and puts the originals in a file with my name on it. She tells me Ivy will contact me soon about next steps, and that I should prepare for Mom to react badly when she gets served with papers. Ivy files the child support petition in family court 2 days later, and Mom has to be served with papers. It happens at Derek's office because she's still technically working there even though they're not together anymore. Derek texts me that afternoon with just 3 words. She lost it. Then a longer message explaining that the process server came during business hours and handed Mom the papers in front of clients and other agents. She screamed at the process server and then at Derek, calling them both traitors and accusing them of conspiring against her. She threw the papers on the floor and had to be escorted out of the building by security. Derek says she's been blowing up his phone ever since, but he's not answering. I feel a savage satisfaction reading his messages because Mom is finally facing consequences, and she can't manipulate or charm her way out of legal papers. Mom retains her own lawyer within a week. Some guy who immediately starts sending aggressive letters to Ivy's office claiming I manipulated the guardianship, and she's the real victim of my vindictive campaign. The letters use words like coercion and undue influence, and paint Mom as a struggling woman who did her best while I took advantage of her vulnerable state. Ivy responds with calm facts and financial documentation that make Mom's lawyer's arguments look ridiculous. She sends copies of the Instagram posts showing Mom's beach house life, the financial records from Derek showing her salary, the guardianship papers Mom signed without even reading them. Ivy's response letters are professional but cutting, pointing out that mom voluntarily abandoned 5 minor children, including a 3-year-old, and failed to provide adequate support despite having significant income. Mom's lawyer goes quiet for a few days after that. The twins' teachers call me in for a meeting because Ella has been acting out in class and Eva has been crying in the bathroom. I have to take time off work and drive to their school feeling guilty because I've been so focused on the legal stuff that I haven't been paying enough attention to how this is affecting them. The teachers are 2 women who look concerned but not judgmental. They tell me Ella snapped at another student yesterday, and Eva has been missing class time because she keeps getting upset. I have to explain that we're going through a family situation, that their mom, who's been gone for years, is suddenly back in our lives in a bad way. The teachers are surprisingly supportive and offer counseling resources through the school. They say both girls can see the school counselor during study hall, and they'll work with me on any assignments they miss. I thank them and promise to talk to the twins about what's happening. Jason's anxiety spikes, and he starts having panic attacks again like when mom first left. I find him hyperventilating in his room one night after dinner, his whole body shaking and his eyes wide with fear. I sit with him and talk him through breathing exercises until he calms down, but I know this is serious. I have to take him back to therapy, which I can barely afford even with my 2 jobs. His therapist, Margot, is a calm woman in her 50s, who has been seeing Jason on and off since he was 6. She's gentle but direct about how the renewed contact with mom is traumatizing him, how he's regressing to old patterns of anxiety and fear. She recommends weekly sessions for at least a month, and I agree, even though I have no idea how I'll pay for it. Margot gives Jason some new coping strategies and tells me to watch for signs of panic attacks so I can help him through them. Katie finally asks why I've been so upset and if mommy is coming home. We're sitting on the couch after I put the other kids to bed, and she's looking at me with those big eyes that still have so much hope in them. I have to figure out how to explain this to a 10-year-old without completely destroying her view of her mother. I tell her mommy lives far away and probably won't visit, but we're working on making sure she helps take care of us like she's supposed to. Katie processes this quietly for a minute and then asks if mommy doesn't love us anymore. The question hits me hard because I don't know how to answer honestly without breaking her heart. I say mommy has problems that make it hard for her to show love the right way, that it's not about us or anything we did wrong. Katie seems to accept this, but I see the sadness in her eyes, the way her shoulders slump a little. She leans against me and I put my arm around her, wishing I could protect her from this pain, but knowing I can't. A few days later, Ivy calls and tells me the mediation is scheduled for 3 weeks out at the family court building downtown. She wants me to come to her office so we can prepare for seeing mom face-to-face in an official setting. I take time off work and drive to Ivy's office feeling sick to my stomach about the whole thing. Ivy sits me down in her conference room with Alicia taking notes and explains what to expect. Mom's lawyer is going to try painting me as controlling and mom as a victim of my manipulation. They'll say I forced her to sign guardianship papers. They'll claim she's been trying to be involved, but I won't let her. Ivy tells me to stay calm no matter what they say, to stick to the facts, to let her handle the legal arguments. I practice answering questions about why I got guardianship and how mom left. Ivy makes me repeat the timeline over and over until I can say it without crying. 3 weeks feels like forever, and also way too soon. Derek calls me 2 days before the mediation, and his voice sounds tired. He tells me mom has been calling their mutual friends and spreading her own version of what happened. She's saying I'm an adult child who won't let go and is trying to get money from her. Some people believe her because she's good at playing victim, but others are asking questions, especially after Derek tells them the truth about the 5 kids and the abandonment. He says a few of their friends have stopped talking to mom entirely after hearing his side. Thank him for being honest with people even though it must be hard for him. He says he's still angry about being lied to for 3 years, and he wants to help make this right. The next day, Alicia calls and tells me something interesting. Felix Young, mom's wealthy neighbor in Monterey, apparently heard our initial fight at the beach house. He's been telling people in their social circle what he heard through the walls. Mom screaming about her 5 kids, me talking about working double shifts, the whole mess. Mom's reputation in Monterey is taking serious hits and she's losing her mind about it. Alicia says mom has been calling and leaving vicious voicemails on Ivy's office phone. Threats about lawsuits, accusations about lies, screaming about how I'm ruining her life. Ivy wants me to come listen to them. I drive to Ivy's office and she plays me 4 voicemails mom left over the past week. The first one starts out fake calm, but you can hear the rage underneath. By the 4th one, she's screaming that I'm a selfish bitch who always had to be the center of attention. She says I'm making up stories to hurt her. She calls me names I won't repeat. Ivy stops the playback and tells me these voicemails actually help our case a lot. They show mom's true character and her complete lack of sorry feelings about what she did. We're building a really strong argument that she has the money to support her kids and has been deliberately avoiding her responsibilities. The voicemails prove she cares more about her reputation than her children. 2 days before mediation, Oscar Peck calls my phone. He introduces himself as Derek's business partner and says he wants to offer character testimony about mom's lies and the financial records. He sounds really angry on the phone. He tells me mom lied to everyone at their office about being child-free. She made Derek part of her abandonment of 5 kids without him even knowing. Oscar says he'll testify about the salary mom made and the bonuses she got. He'll confirm she had plenty of money to send more support. He's mad that she used their business to fund her beach life while her kids went without. I tell him thank you and give his information to Alicia. Mediation day arrives and I'm shaking as I get dressed in my best clothes. My best outfit is still obviously cheap compared to what mom will wear. Dark pants from the thrift store. A plain shirt I bought on clearance. Shoes that are worn at the heels. I meet Ivy outside the family court building and we walk in together. The building is old and smells like floor cleaner and stress. Mom is already there in the waiting area with her lawyer. She's wearing a designer dress and perfect makeup. Her hair is done professionally. She looks polished and put together like she always does in her Instagram photos. Her lawyer is a man in an expensive suit who looks at me like I'm dirt on his shoe. Mom won't make eye contact with me. Ivy squeezes my arm and we sit on the opposite side of the waiting room. A clerk calls us into the mediation room after 20 minutes. The mediator is a tired-looking woman, probably in her 50s, who has clearly seen every kind of family mess possible. She has short gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. She sits at the head of a long conference table and tells us all to sit down. She explains the mediation process in a flat voice like she said these exact words 1,000 times. Both sides will present their positions. She'll ask questions. The goal is to reach an agreement without going to a full court hearing. Mom's lawyer jumps in immediately before the mediator even finishes talking. He launches into their whole story about how I'm vindictive and controlling. He says Mom is a victim of my manipulation. He claims she's been trying to be involved, but I won't allow contact. He makes it sound like I stole her kids and forced her to sign papers she didn't understand. Ivy waits until he's completely done talking, and then she calmly opens her folder. She presents the financial evidence Derek provided showing Mom's salary and bonuses over 3 years. She shows the timeline of abandonment starting when I was 16 and Katie was 3. She presents the legal guardianship papers Mom signed without even reading them. She shows printed Instagram posts of Mom at the beach house and wine tastings and sailing trips. She lays it all out on the table in front of the mediator. The mediator's expression shifts as she reviews each document. She picks up the Instagram posts and studies them. She looks at the financial records showing Mom made $70,000 a year. She reads the guardianship papers with Mom's signature. Her face gets harder with each piece of evidence. Mom tries to launch into her trauma story about her difficult childhood and needing to heal herself. The mediator holds up one hand and cuts her off mid-sentence. She asks Mom direct questions in a sharp voice. Why didn't you seek modification of custody if you wanted involvement? Why didn't you pay adequate support if you had income? Why did you sign guardianship papers without reading them? Mom stumbles through non-answers that don't make sense. She says she was going to pay more, but things were complicated. She says she meant to read the papers, but trusted me. She says she needed time to heal before she could be a good mother. Her lawyer tries to redirect and talk about Mom's mental health needs, but the mediator isn't having it. She asks how Mom could afford an $800,000 house but not adequate child support. Mom's face goes red and she looks at her lawyer for help. The mediator says she wants to speak with me privately and asks everyone else to step outside. Mom looks panicked, but her lawyer leads her out of the room. Ivy gives me an encouraging nod and follows them. The door closes and it's just me and the mediator. She asks me to tell her in my own words what happened with the guardianship arrangement. She asks if anyone forced me or scared me into taking custody. I tell her the complete truth. I was 16, and Mom just left. She said she'd be gone a few weeks, but months went by. The twins needed someone to sign school forms. Jason needed therapy. Katie needed daycare enrollment. I didn't know what else to do. I was scared if I called anyone official, they'd split us up into foster care. So when I turned 18, I applied for guardianship, and Mom signed the papers over the phone without asking questions. The mediator writes notes while I talk. She asks if I wanted this responsibility, and I tell her no. I wanted to finish high school and be a normal teenager, but I loved my siblings, and I did what I had to do to keep us together. The mediator calls everyone back into the room and we take our seats again. She reviews her notes for a minute before looking up at both sides. She says based on the financial documentation, and the fact that there are 4 dependent children, she's recommending a child support order of $3,200 per month. Mom's lawyer immediately objects and says that amount is way too high for his client's income level. The mediator doesn't even blink. She says the calculation follows California state guidelines exactly, and she's applied the formula correctly based on Mom's documented salary of $70,000 per year. Mom's lawyer tries again, saying there are extenuating circumstances and his client has other financial obligations. The mediator says child support takes priority over other debts and obligations under state law. I can barely breathe because $3,200 a month is more money than I've ever imagined having regularly. That's more than I make at both my jobs combined. Mom's face goes red and then white and she looks like she wants to flip the entire table over. Her lawyer leans in close and whispers something to her while she shakes her head hard. He keeps talking in this urgent, quiet voice and I can see her getting more upset. The mediator clears her throat and says she's also recommending supervised visitation if Mom wants to establish contact with the younger children. Mom's face turns bright red again and she opens her mouth, but her lawyer grabs her arm. He tells the mediator they need a few minutes to consult privately before responding to these recommendations. The mediator nods and says we'll take a 15-minute break. She leaves the room first, and then Mom and her lawyer go out into the hallway. Ivy turns to me with this small smile. She says this is a really good outcome, better than she expected going into mediation. I ask if Mom can refuse to pay, and Ivy explains the support order will be enforceable through automatic wage garnishment. The money will come straight out of Mom's paycheck before she even sees it. Ivy says with this amount, I can cut back to just one job and start working on my GED. I could actually have time to be home with the kids for dinner and homework. I could go to Ella's soccer games and Jason's school concerts. I start crying right there in the mediation room, and Ivy hands me tissues from her bag. She says I did good today, that I was honest and clear, and the mediator saw the truth of the situation. After about 20 minutes, Mom's lawyer comes back without her. He says his client will accept the child support recommendation, but she absolutely refuses any visitation arrangement. He says she won't be supervised like she's some kind of criminal who can't be trusted with her own children. Ivy squeezes my hand under the table, and I squeeze back because honestly, I'm relieved. I don't want Mom around the kids anyway after everything she's done. The mediator returns and drafts the formal agreement on her computer. She prints out copies for everyone, and we all read through the legal language. It says the support payments start next month on the 1st and continue until each child turns 18. It says the order can only be modified by court petition with substantial change in circumstances. Mom and her lawyer come back in, and the mediator explains what we're signing. Mom won't look at me at all. She stares at the wall while her lawyer points to where she needs to sign. I sign my copy and watch Mom's hand shake as she signs hers. The mediator stamps everything official and says the court will process the order within 10 business days. We all stand up, and Mom rushes out of the room so fast she almost runs. Her lawyer follows her, looking tired. I can see them through the window in the hallway. Mom is crying these angry tears, and her lawyer is trying to calm her down, but she keeps shaking her head. Ivy and I walk out a different door and head to the parking lot. I call the twins before I even get to my car. Ella answers on the first ring asking how it went. I tell them we won, that Mom has to pay child support now, and we're going to be okay. Ella whoops so loud I have to hold the phone away from my ear. Eva grabs the phone and asks if this means I can come to her soccer games now instead of always working. I tell her yes, I'm going to have so much more time for all of them. I can hear Katie in the background asking what's happening and Jason telling her it's good news. That night after dinner, I sit all 4 kids down in the living room. Katie climbs into my lap even though she's 10 and getting too big for it. I explain that things are going to change starting next month. I'm going to quit the grocery store job and just work at the warehouse. I'll have time to finish school and be home more for all of them. Ella asks if we'll have enough money, and I tell her about the support payments. Eva wants to know if Mom is coming back, and I say no, probably not. But we're going to be fine without her. Jason actually smiles for the first time in weeks. He says he's glad it's just going to be us 5. Katie asks if we can get a dog now that I'll be home more, and I laugh and say maybe eventually. The next day I talk to Theo at the warehouse, and he adjusts my schedule to day shift so I can be home for dinner and homework time. He says he's proud of me for fighting for my family. The grocery store manager is understanding when I give my 2 weeks notice. She says she always knew I was working too hard, and she's glad things are getting better. My last day there 2 weeks later feels like taking off a backpack full of rocks I've been carrying for 7 years. Sharon Kerr, a counselor at the local high school, helps me enroll in a GED program that meets Tuesday and Thursday evenings. The twins promise to watch Jason and Katie those nights. For the first time, I let myself think about my own future, about maybe going to community college someday, about having a real career instead of just surviving. Derek texts me a few days later asking how we're all doing. I tell him about the support order and quitting one of my jobs. He says he's glad things worked out. Then he tells me Mom moved out of the beach house and is renting a small apartment across town. He says the life she built is falling apart without him there to fund it. I feel this weird mix of satisfaction and sadness because she chose all of this, but she's still my mother somewhere under all the selfishness and lies. The first therapy session with Margot happens 2 weeks later, and I bring all 4 kids to her office downtown. Katie sits on my lap the whole time while Margot asks gentle questions about how everyone feels about Mom being gone for good now. Ella crosses her arms and says she's glad Mom is gone because at least now we know the truth. Eva starts crying and says she misses the Mom she thought was coming back someday. Jason picks at his thumbnail until it bleeds and whispers that he's scared I'll leave too. Margot gives him this kind look and asks me to promise out loud that I'm staying. So I do, and Jason's shoulders drop about 2 inches. We go every week for 3 months, and it's hard watching the kids work through stuff I thought I'd protected them from. Ella's anger comes out in therapy sessions where she yells about Mom choosing a beach house over us. Eva processes her grief slower, talking about memories that might not even be real. Jason's anxiety gets better when I start being home for dinner every night instead of rushing between jobs. Katie draws pictures of our family that never include Mom anymore. Just the 5 of us and sometimes a dog she wants. Margot tells me privately that I did an amazing job keeping them together, but I also need to let myself be angry about what I lost. 6 months after the confrontation at the beach house, I'm sitting in my 3rd GED class learning algebra I should have learned at 16. The warehouse day shift means I work 8 to 4 now, and I'm home when the kids get back from the school. I actually sleep at night instead of catching 3-hour naps between shifts. My bank account shows Mom's support payment hitting automatically on the 1st of every month. $3,200 that changed everything. The twins are doing better in the school now that I can help with homework. Jason's therapist says his panic attacks are way less frequent. Katie asked me last week if we're poor anymore, and I told her we're doing okay now. I'm still mad about dropping out at 16 and working myself half to death for 7 years while mom posted beach sunset photos. I'm mad I never got to be young or stupid or careless like other people my age, but I'm also proud we survived it, that I kept my siblings together and safe when mom walked away. She never calls, and honestly that's fine because we're finally okay without her. We built something better than what she left behind.